There is enough grass in a single field to fill your stomach every day for the rest of your life. It grows for free, stores energy from sunlight, and can build an animal that weighs more than 500 kilograms. Yet, if you were trapped in that field and tried to live like a cow, you could eat until your stomach hurt and still slowly starve. The energy is inside the grass, but your body does not have the key to unlock most of it. A cow does, although not in the way you might imagine. Inside, it is operating a warm, wet factory, filled with billions of microscopic workers. That hidden factory is the reason a cow can turn a lawn into muscle, while a human can barely turn it into an acceptable salad. Our story begins with a very hungry man and an almost empty wallet. He walks through a supermarket with a small basket and a shrinking sense of hope. He reaches for a piece of meat, sees the price, and carefully returns it as if it were a valuable museum object. He tries eggs next, but the price sends them back to the shelf before they ever reach the basket. By the time he reaches the checkout, his basket contains one small packet of noodles and nothing else. He empties his pockets onto the counter and produces a few coins, a button, and a stone that is unlikely to be accepted as currency. At home, he opens the refrigerator and finds only a light, an old bottle of sauce, and the cold air of disappointment. He closes the door, waits a moment, and opens it again, just in case food has appeared through a process not yet recognized by science. Then his stomach growls, and he looks through the window. Outside is a wide green field, covered with food that nobody is selling. A cow stands in the middle of it, eating without a shopping list, a kitchen, or the slightest concern about inflation. The cow does not wash the grass, season it, cook it, or read the label on the back. It lowers its head, tears off another mouthful, and continues building an enormous body from something people normally step on. The man measures the cow with a piece of string, then measures his own thin arm. Free grass plus healthy cow must equal perfect human food. It is the moment when someone has very little evidence and exactly enough confidence to continue. The next morning, the man begins harvesting his new diet with unnecessary professionalism. He cuts each blade with scissors, washes the dirt away, and sorts the grass by length and shade of green. Breakfast is raw grass served in a bowl. Dinner is grass wrapped around more grass, because presentation matters when flavor does not exist. He also attempts a green smoothie, which immediately becomes a problem. The mixture becomes so thick that the blender shakes across the table and disappears over the edge. Finally, he sits down before a carefully arranged plate and lifts one blade with a fork. The first bite tastes fresh, natural, and slightly like the ground from which it was recently removed. A clock behind him moves forward, but the grass in his mouth seems unchanged. His jaw grows tired before the food becomes soft. Still, he swallows, marks the first day as a success, and goes to bed feeling like a pioneer. The plan appears to work because the human body tolerates many poor decisions before sending a formal complaint. On the second day, he wakes up hungry and eats a larger bowl. On the third day, he chews while staring at a picture of bread with the emotional intensity of a tragic romance. On the fourth day, his stomach is completely full, but his body feels strangely empty. The grass fills his stomach to 100%, while his usable energy rises by almost nothing. He eats more, his belly expands, and his jaw works harder. He tries to lift a small weight and is pulled to the floor by it. He climbs 3 steps, reaches the 4th, and lies down as if he has completed a mountain expedition. Meanwhile, the cow continues eating the same grass and appears completely healthy. The man has discovered an important difference between having food inside the stomach and having energy available to the body. A plant uses sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create molecules rich in stored chemical energy. The difficulty is that much of this energy is packed inside a structure designed to be strong rather than easy to digest. To understand the problem, we must travel into a single blade of grass. At this scale, the soft green leaf becomes a fortified building made from countless plant cells. Around those cells are tough walls that help the plant stand upright, resist damage, and avoid collapsing into green soup. Cellulose is built from glucose, the same basic sugar that human cells can use for energy. This sounds promising until we examine how the glucose units are connected. They are joined in long, straight chains by chemical bonds that the human digestive system cannot easily break. The difference is similar to finding money sealed inside thousands of locked metal boxes. Your digestive system carries many biological tools called enzymes. Some cut proteins into amino acids. Others separate fats into smaller components or break starch into simple sugars. However, humans do not produce the enzyme cellulase, which is needed to efficiently cut the bonds in cellulose. The digestive enzymes arrive at the cellulose wall with an impressive collection of keys, but none fits the lock. They push, pull, and strike the door, then eventually allow it to continue through the intestines. As dietary fiber, it adds bulk, helps material move through the digestive system, and supports a healthy environment for intestinal microbes. But fiber is not a major source of calories for humans. The hungry man is therefore moving large amounts of grass through a long biological tube without extracting enough energy to support himself. His stomach may be full, but most of the valuable material remains locked away. A cow also has a body made of animal cells, and those cells do not magically chew through cellulose on their own. So how does the cow open the same locked boxes that defeat the man? The man begins investigating the animal like a detective who suspects agricultural fraud. He examines its mouth, looks under its body, and secretly watches it at night to see whether it eats sandwiches when nobody is looking. When grass enters a cow, it does not immediately pass into a simple stomach like the one humans possess. It first enters a large fermentation chamber called the rumen. The rumen is warm, moist, low in oxygen, and continuously supplied with crushed plant material. In other words, it is an excellent home for organisms that enjoy eating what the cow cannot digest alone. Billions of bacteria live there, together with fungi, protozoa, and other microorganisms. They reach the cellulose chains, cut them apart, and begin fermenting the released material. During fermentation, the microbes produce short-chain fatty acids, especially acetate, propionate, and butyrate. These molecules pass through the wall of the rumen and become a major source of energy for the cow. The cow is therefore not directly turning every blade of grass into glucose with its own enzymes. It feeds grass to a microscopic community, then absorbs the useful products created by that community. From the inside, an entire city is processing every mouthful. The man has a community of microbes in his intestines too, but it is not arranged like the system inside a cow. Human fermentation occurs mainly in the large intestine, near the end of the digestive journey. Our microbes can process some fibers and produce useful compounds, but the chamber is too small and the system is not specialized enough to extract cow-sized amounts of energy from grass. The cow has given its microbes a much larger workplace and much more time. People often say that a cow has 4 stomachs, but it is more accurate to describe one complex stomach with 4 main compartments. A mouthful of grass first reaches the rumen, where microbes begin fermentation. It also moves through the reticulum, a neighboring compartment that helps organize material and supports a remarkable process called rumination. Partly processed food is pushed back up the esophagus and returned to the mouth. The cow chews it again, breaking the plant into smaller pieces and giving the microbes more surface area to attack. For humans, a meal returning to the mouth usually signals that something has gone very wrong. For a cow, it is a normal stage of quality control. After being swallowed again, the material continues toward the omasum. There, water and some dissolved substances are absorbed while the food is squeezed and filtered between many folds. It then enters the abomasum, which functions more like the acidic stomach familiar to humans. By this point, the cow is also digesting many microbes that grew while processing the grass, gaining valuable protein and other nutrients from them. A blade of grass has now passed through fermentation, microbial processing, regurgitation, a second round of chewing, filtration, acid digestion, and intestinal absorption. It is an industrial supply chain. The man finally understands why copying the cow's menu did not copy the cow's results. First, he draws 4 large circles on his abdomen and confidently eats another plate of grass. Nothing changes, because drawing organs on the skin does not create them inside the body. Next, he wraps several meters of hose around his body to create a longer digestive tract. The system leaks immediately and turns the kitchen into a swamp. Then he attempts to recruit microorganisms by placing a container of imaginary bacteria beside his meal. The idea fails because a microbial ecosystem is not software that can be installed with one click. The organisms require the correct temperature, acidity, moisture, oxygen level, food supply, and relationships with thousands of other species. It is a carefully balanced habitat shaped by millions of years of evolution. The man observes the cow bringing food back to its mouth and briefly considers copying that process as well. For the protection of science, dignity, and everyone watching, this experiment ends before it begins. Even if the man could somehow obtain a functioning rumen, his problem would not be solved for free. Grass is abundant, but it is a dilute and difficult source of energy. Animals that depend on it must eat large quantities and spend many hours chewing, resting, and fermenting. A large fermentation chamber also occupies a great deal of space. The man imagines himself with an enormous cow-like abdomen. He can no longer fit through his door, sit on an ordinary chair, or move quickly without his digestive factory arriving several seconds later. He spends nearly the entire day chewing, yet still needs another pile of grass before sunset. The food may be free, but the biological equipment required to use it is extremely expensive. Cows and humans followed different paths because they survived on different kinds of food. The ancestors of modern ruminants developed a partnership with cellulose-digesting microbes and bodies capable of housing large fermentation chambers. They gained access to a vast resource that many other animals could not use efficiently. Human ancestors followed another strategy. They ate a varied diet that included fruits, seeds, tubers, leaves, meat, and many other foods with more accessible energy. They used hands and tools to crush, cut, pound, and grind food before swallowing it. Cooking softened plant tissues, altered proteins, made many starches easier to digest, and reduced the amount of chewing required for a meal. A cow carries much of its food processing machinery inside its body. A human places much of that machinery outside the body in the form of knives, stones, grinders, pots, and ovens. The hungry man now looks suspiciously at a plate of vegetables and almost pushes it away. But the lesson is not that humans cannot eat plants. Fruits store sugars that are easy to absorb. Seeds and grains contain starch, protein, and sometimes large amounts of fat. Tubers store energy underground, and cooking can make their starch much easier to access. Vegetables provide water, vitamins, minerals, and fiber, along with varying amounts of carbohydrates and protein. The issue is which parts of the plant contain usable nutrients, how concentrated those nutrients are, and whether the digestive system can reach them. A tender leaf, a ripe fruit, and a cooked potato are very different meals from a mouthful of mature lawn grass. Humans can benefit from cellulose as fiber, but we cannot rely on it as our primary fuel. After several failed experiments, the man returns to his small kitchen. The floor is covered with broken equipment, wet grass, useless hoses, and a notebook containing a theory that once seemed brilliant. Outside, the cow continues eating with the calm expression of an animal that has no idea it has just won an argument. The man looks at the cow, then at his own body, and finally understands that neither one is badly designed. He finds a potato, a few vegetables, and an egg. He cuts the ingredients, places them in a pan, and uses heat to begin digestion, before the food even enters his mouth. Outside, the cow lowers another mouthful of grass into its internal fermentation system. Inside, the man uses tools and fire to process a smaller, richer meal. Both are turning the environment into energy, but each is using the technology provided by its own evolutionary history. The smell of the cooked meal drifts through the window, and the cow raises its head. It approaches the house and looks at the plate. The man slowly pulls the food toward himself and places a fresh bundle of grass in front of the cow. The man eats his dinner, and the cow returns to chewing. Grass can support a large animal because that animal is not working alone. A cow has a specialized stomach, a stable microbial ecosystem, repeated chewing, and millions of years of adaptation behind every bite. Humans instead rely on a flexible diet, dexterous hands, tools, cooking, and an unusual talent for turning difficult ingredients into meals. Every species has its own way of converting the world into dinner. Problems begin when one species copies another species' menu without checking the digestive system required to run it. There may be energy inside the grass beneath your feet. That does not mean your body knows how to collect it. So the next time you see a cow building hundreds of kilograms of muscle from a field, remember that you are not watching one animal eat a simple meal. You are watching an entire microscopic workforce operate a biological factory, one mouthful of grass at a time.